In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be spending this time here with you today. Gosh, we've got some great guests lined up. Our first guest, Jill Willard, has a keen sense of what's going on. She's a gifted intuitive medium, leader in meditation practice, and has a grace that many just love that conveys her golden rays of wisdom. She's the author of Intuitive Being and has been featured on Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, Women's Health Online, Mind, Body, Green, and Atomic Moms. So let's welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to have you here. I know you are the go-to person for many top A-listers in Hollywood. You write for quite a few different articles for some online magazines and magazines. You're just well known everywhere, you know. So, well, and I have to ask, so what inspired you to write Intuitive Being?
Oh, thank you for asking. Honestly, what inspired me is all the different clients and readings that I was doing years and years ago. I was seeing a lot of the same things coming up, or it was showing some of the same remedies or ways of being that can help us all move forward or move us out of our current situation. And I was in awe, and the people in the readings were always in awe. And so I started, then people were asking more questions, and I was sending emails, or we started joking long emails or little pamphlets, helping with the information, helping facilitate understanding. And then it really just organically turned into this writing piece. So it was a joy and a pleasure to be able to move this forward, and I wanted to wait until I had our last child, our third child, to then really be able to put it out in the universe and make sure I was at home when they were really young. So it was just that combination of timing.
And we all know a book is like having another baby. You know?
Exactly. It is like birthing a baby.
It is. I mean, because you have to nurture it. There's a lot of stuff in order for it to grow, successfully as well. So, I applaud you because, creating a new book, and even though it's material that you've been developing for some period of time, getting it all together, I'm sure, and especially because this was so clear and it was so easy to, go to and go, hey, okay, this all makes sense. It brings everything together.
Thank you. And I have to give a lot of credit to a great team around me that helped me with that and helped bring it so practically to the everyday. And that's always my intention. Sometimes I channel a little bit and the verbiage is a little different. So, yes, it's just a joy. We're all very proud of it.
Oh, well, it's a great book. So, getting into some of the questions I have. So when you were writing this book, you talked about, you were kind of seeing some similarities in questions or issues that people were having. Is that still the case now?
Yes, as many know, I've been saying, it's been around for over a couple of years, but we're very stuck in what's called our second energy center, for those that or chakra. So we're stuck in a culture and a world that's a bit like junior high, and we're seeing that in our political stances and a lot of different aspects. So people are all experiencing a lot of letting go, which is good. It's like we're clearing out our closets, we're cleansing out our bodies. We're doing a lot of this rebalance in the second energy center with our relationship to things, including Mother Earth. So there is a theme, and it was not my theme, and then how we all handle that or what we show up for, how mature we are or the wisdom that we know. We're all doing our best, I know. It would show up in some similar ways and then some very different ways. But the theme was all, let's get it together and move up into our power, redistribute power, and then also, of course, bring in the heart, because in evolution, we are ready. We understand. Jesus and Buddha talked about this thousands of years ago, and we're still not understanding that. So there is an overall theme and then an individual theme, and they really coexist. So.
Well, and I know right now it seems like everyone's going through tremendous turmoil, and it
Yes.
probably is what is reflecting in our politics. So,
Yes.
With all that going on, what are some of the things that you would suggest for our listeners to kind of get themselves kind of, back in balance?
Such a good question. So the main thing we can do, which people laugh when I say this, but 2 key ways to start is to, one, go to your most busy cupboard or the messiest part of your closet, literally in your home or apartment or place or even office, and clean it out. Because that's a sign to the universe or God or whatever you believe that you are showing up in this messy chaos we're in right now to clean out what we need. And then it really is what you're seeing in books and a lot on television of what do we keep, what do we let go, and what can we recycle. So kind of the 3. And that starts to organize the mind and the body, where then all of a sudden at lunch or dinner that night we say, I'm not going to have 3 hamburgers, I'm going to have 1. I'm going to add more greens, and I'm going to have a third or second vegetable with it. We start to let our mind and body start to connect with, wait, I've had too much of this, not enough of that. I've been hoarding, or I've been emotionally keeping things too close inside. And it starts to help very practically redirect, or kind of showing the world or the universe or energy, we are ready to create shift and clean out and take responsibility. And the most chaos that I'm seeing, it shows in readings, is we're just not owning our stuff, whether it's we were rude to someone years ago, we got a divorce, we're still not just coming to a centered place, meaning peace. We haven't written that apology letter, or we haven't forgiven ourselves for what we think is a failure. So acts, very simple acts in the world, help shift this. And then the other piece that I often say, and comes a lot in readings, is understanding that emotions are real. They're real energy, because our culture has been taught, let's be seen and not heard, or not seen and heard when we're children. So we stuff our true feelings down, our truth. And we want to understand that emotions are real. So anything that helps our water flow, which really rebalances our body, our insulin and cortisol, helps with cancer, helps with all of those things in our body that really start to affect us, that make us tired or stressed. So if we understand that emotions are real, we can start looking at them like we put them on the table. And you can take a piece of paper on a table and write down, what am I feeling right now, without logic, without it's good or bad, right or wrong, just understanding that emotions are real and they're like water, or they're round. They're not like a number or logic. And that really helps people get into the right side of their mind and become more whole thinking, where they forgive themselves for what would be called a success or failure. All of a sudden just becomes a long stream of water where there's no start and no end. So we don't try to bottle it up. So those 2 are easy, but yet very hard.
Isn't it always? It's these simple,
yes.
easy steps that if we do make such a profound difference, at the same time, it's
yes.
like, ooh, do I really want to tackle my closet when things are kind of, reaching out and grabbing me to drag me in there?
Yes, lean into the pain or the chaos. Give yourself 3 hours of time and just do what you can. And then the next Saturday, give yourself, an hour of time. You can break it up. But steps, any step in forward motion, the universe or faith loves right now. So any step forward, any step to say, I am taking responsibility for this, instead of the, 1 finger out, 3 fingers back, like we've been watching in our society for so long, and we do at home. So it's not about bashing anyone, including those running for politics. It's seeing it in our own life and how we do it unconsciously.
Well, and I know in your book, kind of you break everything so down
Yes.
to, like, it's so simple and so easy. You talk about the 4 bodies. Can you go into a little bit more detail for our listeners about that, and what does that mean? Because if they're starting, like, I know I've got my gut feeling or women's intuition, so where do I go from there, and how does this all affect me,
Oh, wonderful. So 2 quick parts. 1, the gut is 3rd energy center, and we really want to pull in our front of our mind, our wisdom in our mind, or our 6th energy center. So that's the first connect to understand what the 4 bodies are, is kind of that partnership of 2 or more. So we use our gut, which is very instinctual, and then let's bring in that part of our mind, the front of the mind, some say, or the 3rd eye, that has a knowing. And that combination will really help you start to understand what's called the four bodies or four aspects of being. And the four bodies or four aspects of being is that if we think of ourselves, our physical body is part of us, our emotions or emotional body is part of us, our intellect or what we think makes a part of us, and then our spirituality, our connecting to something bigger or coming into our whole self is the fourth part. And we can think of it like a pie if we want, that we want to look at all four aspects like they're 25% of our wholeness or 25% of the pie. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at the four bodies or four aspects is if you put up your hand, and your hand would be your physical body, and then you put a ring around your hand, and that's called your emotional body. And that also is your nervous system, your cortisol, your insulin, your hormones. It's everywhere where if we give each other more touch on the skin, we'd be calmer in our emotional body because we'd be connecting to our feelings and also to one another. We'd be able to share our feelings more, which really helps the emotional body thrive and keeps weight off because we're not too bloated and we're also not eating too much sugary food because we're feeling sad or feeling as emotional. So we don't have our insulin, cortisol moving. So that's the emotional body. And then the intellectual or mental body would be the next thing around our hand or our body, which will make part of our aura. And that's the thoughts we think and what we put out in the world. You know, when we say thoughts become things, or what we put out attracts back to us. It's exactly what the intellectual or mental body is. We have a lot of say in what we attract, and we don't realize this. We say, oh my gosh, I had another poor relationship, or oh my gosh, I didn't take care of myself again. But that's a lot of the self-talk or the mental imagery we're putting out in the world. We're just magnetizing back to us. So when we notice that thoughts become things or our intellectual body, we start to take ownership and shift that. And there's a lot of tools in the book for that. And then the fourth aspect would kind of be the shine around us. You think about like sun rays around your hand, or just that part. If you're sitting on an airplane and someone's sitting next to you or even a couple rows back, you're overlapping in the spiritual aspect. We really are connected beings. And many of us have turned that off, or we think God is far away in the sky, or God doesn't love us, or no one loves us. And then we disconnect from that spiritual aspect of feeling seen and heard or feeling connected, and then we live more in fear because we worry about our neighbor or who's next to us on the airplane instead of just leaning in and saying, I'll say hello, or we'll just share this space in harmony. And the mental or intellectual body and the spiritual body really play a role together because we all know if we're irritated, if we're hungry, if we ate too much sugar, if we're rushing to the airplane, if we've had too much coffee, if we've gotten in an emotional fight with someone, we carry that onto an airplane ride. And then we're actually projecting ourselves onto the people next to us by saying, oh, they're rude, or look at him snore, or that person smells, instead of centering and saying, I'm just going to find my peaceful space within. And then the four bodies kind of center with you. So it's really about that understanding that we have control or say in our whole being.
So learning how to be a little bit more in control of our four bodies, is that where we unleash the power and wisdom within our intuition?
Yes, I can, exactly. And if we could say, because control is a lovely word, if we use the word center, it's almost like we know we are in control and not in control, but we know our part. So we step forward and meet our part, and then we let the rest of the universe or energy or others come toward us and meet in that kind of center space. So that is how we connect to our intuition, but there's a part of letting go that happens in the third energy center of power and worth. We own our power and worth, but then once we get into the heart, we understand we're all one. So we let go of complete control. We're out of our ego. So the lower three energy centers are more ego-based. So the third energy center of our gut is in our ego, which is healthy. We need to take responsibility for ourselves, and we usually can do that by the time we're 20 or 21. And if we're in healthy energy centers, if we understand this work, then we're up in the heart of understanding we're all one. So we can only control, if you want to think of it this way, 50% of the whole picture, and then the other half is going to be God or the universe or just what happens in life. So we don't think we can control loved ones or control our body, because that's where the push-pull happens, because the right intuition is part us. Like you'll hear me say, but this wisdom isn't mine, but I'm staying centered so the wisdom can come in. So where does that wisdom Where does that wisdom come from? We don't know yet. Is it God? Is it spirit? Is it part of our brain? That's part of the discussion. It's that 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? And thank you for elaborating on control, because that can be a sticky word. You know, if you think about it in a certain way, you know, there's parts of it where it can be beneficial, and then there's the shadow of that as well. You know.
So well said. And that second energy of black and white, or light and shadow. So if we use the word responsibility, it just makes it more that we can do our best. And then the rest, we just have to let go, right? We don't have control of anything. Even we can just do our best with our own health, but things can still happen. And then we don't blame ourselves. You know, I work with a lot of people who blame, oh, I have cancer, I failed. Oh, I have a miscarriage, I failed. Oh, my goodness, no. So that's where we don't want to think we have all control or zero control. Yeah.
Well, and I think that people do the best with the information that they're given at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
Yeah, when we get into that self-judgment, it just it's so destructive. You know,
it really
it brings
is.
it all down.
It does. And back to the four bodies, or the four aspects of being, you know, our humanness, or physical, and our mental, or our intellectual, is known as the masculine side of life, or the doing. And the emotional and the spiritual is known as the feminine side of life, or the being. And we've been living in a patriarchal society since the U.S. began. So we've all done our best, and our parents did their best, and our grandparents did, and whatnot. That said, it's been in a system of a lot of physical, a lot of attention to physical and mental. So if you're smart, if you have these accolades, you'll do well. If your body looks a certain way, all of this, that's all on the left side of the brain. We're inviting everyone to open up the right side, and that's just not been done in our culture yet, not in a whole way. So we all need to forgive ourselves.
There, though. Yeah,
please.
You know, it's getting to a point where we can really open up to that whole opportunity of, you know, the boys don't have to be, you know, like cast iron. You know, it's okay to show emotions and show your feelings. You know.
Yes. Well said.
So I know that you also have a fabulous, you know, because I know that meditation plays a big part in our intuitive being. Why don't you share a little bit with us about, you know, if someone's looking to kind of bring themselves more in balance, some meditation tools that they can use?
Oh, wonderful. So yes, we have a company called I Am for Intuitive Meditation. And the website is iamcommunity.com. It's just a beautiful picture of an ocean. There's no pop-ups or anything like that. So meditation alone, as we know, is stillness, or being at a beautiful spot, like when we're on vacation and we're really enjoying it, or at a favorite place on a mountaintop, or by trees or ocean. So visualization is so important, I think, for meditation, and just finding stillness where you close your eyes. You can sit in your office, in your car, at home, just for a couple minutes. And you begin to center. And of course, you don't want to do this while you're driving, or with, you know, young kids at your feet if your eyes are closed. But just starting to connect yourself. You can do it as you're lying in bed. Maybe turn off your favorite show early, or give yourself just a couple minutes. Or in the morning, after your shower, do it there. So just stealing a couple minutes, or finding a couple minutes to start the breath, or the visualization of centering within your lungs, or within that really sacred, yummy place in yourself. And so sometimes we need to transport ourselves. So at I Am, we teach a lot about just breathing and visualizing, or breathing into both sides of your lungs. And we have these little bracelets and these little cloths, so you can find a spot in your home or outside somewhere that you like to create this space, because the mind loves to know, it's like when we see our favorite coffee mug or our favorite destination, like, we're transported. So we create this for ourselves in our busy day. And then just find a spot, we say 3 to 5 minutes to begin. And we have simple meditations on the site to really get into a certain color, which you'll see in the book, is really important because it goes with an energy center that's part of your body, but also part of your maturity, or part of your exponential growth, if you want to look at it that way, kind of coming into your heart and your wholeness, or coming into the centering of your mind. It takes a little work when we're used to working more on one side of the mind or the other. So our meditation company just gives you very simple, practical tools, gives you a little guidance in the meditations, the videos, and then just lets you take ownership, and we're here to support you. And that's what intuitive being is as well, just to let you go on this journey, and when things come up, how to breathe them out. And when we go into longer meditations, what does that mean? We have a great one for yogic sleep. It's called Yoga Nidra. We have ones for stress. We have ones to help get your body more into alkaline state so cancer cannot grow. So they can be very practical, or they can be just more relaxation. And we call it spiritual Botox, or we call it, beautiful rest, where you've just centered yourself and you open your eyes back up, and all of a sudden you don't want to get upset at a child or criticize yourself, or you're ready for your day and you become more efficient, or you make better decisions because you're not swayed by what someone next to you wants to do. You're taking more ownership in your own body and your own choices. So as you can tell, I'm so love this aspect, because meditation, or just quiet stillness and focusing on breathing, gets us back into our center. And some of us might not have experienced that since we were little. We learned at 3, 4, 5, the world isn't safe, it's stressful, or whatever it is. And you're reclaiming that part of you again. And breath work is huge in that.
Well, and it just goes hand in hand with your book, because getting to that still, quiet place allows you really to be more intuitive, to be that greater conduit.
Exactly. It's really simpler than we realize. And just going back in and clearing some of those layers, like thoughts that come up, will take a little time. It's a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. So exactly. So some of that, you give yourself a little bit of time, one step at a time, and all of a sudden you have this intuitive knowing. You saw a sign, or you knew something was going to happen, and you heard a voice you had never heard before, of your wise voice, or a spirit, or an angel, or God, whatever you think it is. And it is so exciting. So that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's just I think one of the most beneficial parts of starting a journey, or if you've been on the intuitive path for a while, this is a great book to pick up, because it helps you refocus and kind of get back to center of where it is that you would like to go on your journey. It's I highly suggest all of our listeners pick up Intuitive Being.
Thank you. It is much more practical than I'm even speaking right now. Yes, it's
which
wonderful.
is pretty practical.
Step by step.
Yeah. So, where can our listeners find you and connect with you?
So thank you. So I have a great website, jillwillard.com, and then social media is a great way as well. So Twitter is Jill_Willard, and Instagram, I believe, is the same. So that's a great way. I have wonderful help that we will eventually do more newsletters again, and blogging. We've been writing a lot of articles and whatnot. So I've stepped away from doing some of that right now. And then on the website, Jill Willard, you'll see or be able to hear this podcast again. There's other articles that we've written and whatnot that can help. And then I hope next year to get back out and do readings again. I stepped away from it just to help reach out to more people and make sure everyone can have access to this information. But we will be doing that. There's an event in Los Angeles this month. We go back to New York in November. So that will all be on my website. They'll show what's open and where you can sign up for different events and whatnot. And the more you hear this lingo and talking, the more you'll understand. I truly apologize how some of this, we were talking earlier, can sound like French at first if you don't study French, or it's a different verbiage. So that's why one of the many reasons I wanted to write the book in such a succinct way, so that we could help bridge what's coming in and coming down the pipe in a really accessible way. Because sometimes I understand it and others are like, oh my goodness, Jill, can you repeat that? So the website will help.
Well, it's great because this can it speaks to everybody at every level of their journey. So they're able to go ahead, pick up the book, and just kind of start from there. So thank you so much, Jill, for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Thank you so much, Marianne. What beautiful work you're doing. It's a pleasure.
Aww. Thank you, Jill. What an honor it's been to have you here. So we're going to pause here for a quick break. You want to stay tuned. Our next special guest, Robyn Benincasa. She is a keynote speaker, San Diego firefighter, and founder of Project Athena, which was a CNN hero. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
He's the change management expert, interrupting ordinary lives and making them extraordinary. John Register, experiential keynote speaker, went from track and field Olympic trials candidate and Gulf War Army veteran through a career-ending injury, an amputation, to winning the Paralympic long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia. Now he shows business executives and college sports professionals how to turn obstacles into opportunities. Book John to speak to your group. Kick off your New Year resolve to create the new normal at johnregister.com.
Need an appointment with a world-class intuitive? Worried about health, finances, relationships, or career? Hire the woman $1 million executives hire repeatedly. Zen Cryer DeBrook, a tested, award-winning intuitive, is taking new appointments.
Zen's readings are very clear, direct, and actionable. They boost your momentum and productivity and get you on track and moving very quickly to where you want to be.
Get a fresh strategy that works, personally and professionally. Schedule today at appointmentwithzen.com. Appointmentwithzen.com.
For over 4 million people, the clock is ticking as they hope and pray for a miracle, waiting for someone to offer them a kidney and another chance at life. Ari Sittner answered that call. Ari is a social worker, therapist, rabbi, coach, consultant, and keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, The Kidney Donor's Journey. This inspiring story shares Ari's remarkable experience of faith, family, and kindness as he saved the life of a single mom with 3 kids. Find The Kidney Donor's Journey on Amazon and visit Ari at akidneydonor.com.
I know we are unlimited, not only because I healed myself of chronic disease in only 3 weeks, but because I know what has helped thousands of my clients transform their own lives. My book, A Short Path to Change, 30 Ways to Transform Your Life, offers 30 easy and quick tools you can use to help transform any aspect of your life. Visit and subscribe to my site, JennyMannion.com, JennyMannion.com, for free gifts, including a guided healing meditation and the first chapter of my book. I look forward to offering you easy ways to help you get clear for the new year.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest, I'm so excited to have her here with us today. Her name is Robyn Benincasa. She's the founder of Project Athena, which was a CNN hero. She's also a keynote speaker and New York Times bestselling author of How Winning Works, 8 Essential Leadership Lessons from the Toughest Teams on Earth. She's noted for her team building, leadership, and performance abilities. She's a San Diego firefighter and a world champion adventure racer. So welcome to the show, Robyn.
Hey, thanks, Marianne. Great to be here. Hi, nice people that listen to the goddess Marianne.
Well, thank you. And so I've got to ask, you have such a amazing resume. You're a firefighter, you're this athlete, you're a keynote speaker and trainer, and you have this group that you've developed called Project Athena. And I just have to ask, what inspired you to create that?
Oh, gosh. Well, a couple of things. First of all, basically what we do at Project Athena is we help survivors of medical or traumatic setbacks live an adventurous dream as part of their recovery. So, my friends and I kind of take our adventure and adventure racing background, and we train survivors to cross crazy, amazing, challenging finish lines so they can show their friends and family how strong they are after kind of a big, medical or traumatic setback in their life. And it was really inspired by a good friend of mine, Louise Cooper, who is now a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And as I kind of watched her go through her first bout with cancer in 98, she always put like some race or run or challenge on her calendar. She was a world-class adventure racer. And she just continued to put things on her calendar no matter what. And every single day she went out and did some kind of, quote unquote training, even if it was just walking around the block, at some point. She still went out and did her thing because in her mind, yes, she was surviving cancer, but also she was an ultra runner and an adventure racer and a mountaineer, and something that was more important to her that kind of made the cancer less important or less in the forefront of her life because she was training for these other amazing things, as she was going through her treatment. So, I started having my hips replaced, at 40. And, when that, happened, with me, I kind of took a sheet out of Louise's playbook and said, you know what, I'm going to put a big paddling race on my calendar so that, I'm having, my hips replaced, but I'm going to be an ultra paddler. And so when that occurred, I basically said, you know what, this is a really cool thing that we've done for ourselves that we can, I think, move forward and do for other women, because it just changed our lives so much to not focus on these setbacks as much as the comeback.
Well, and I know on the website projectathena.org, I mean, you have just these amazing stories of women who have they've overcome such amazing obstacles, like you and your friend, in order to be to participate in these adventures.
Yeah, we have, it kind of started out to be breast cancer survivors, and then we had so many people writing to us saying, well, okay, I was in a coma for 3 weeks, or I'm an above-the-knee amputee from an infection that I had, or I have PTSD. And, basically, training for a big adventure and a huge, hairy, audacious adventure is something that's just good for the soul, and especially for people who want to get past their setback and say, you know what, I really want to show myself and my friends how strong I am. So we decided to not limit what the setback is, and said, we're going to give these grants to, people write to us and kind of apply for these grants. We call them Athenaships. And they tell us their story. And if it's somebody that we think we can help by training them to, for example, hike across the Grand Canyon in one day, or other adventures like we just got back from kayaking and riding bikes from Key Largo to Key West, 120 miles over 3 days, with a group of survivors and fundraisers, or hiking 50 miles down the coast of San Diego in 2 days. And these are all big, big things that most of our friends and family who have not had a big setback would go, wait, you're going to do what? And that's why it's so much fun, because, it's not just I survived. It's, I'm this badass, I'm this badass athlete. and it's so great, it's so great for people to be able to come back from something, and also, show their family and their doctors and their kids that they're not weak and fragile anymore.
I would agree with you. I think after having any kind of, traumatic injury or overcoming any type of just trauma, that, it just proves to these wonderful women, just how strong they can be in their own lives, and then it just gives them courage to take that and move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And people go back and kind of bring that energy, maybe to other survivors locally, or, and just to their families and their communities and their friends at work. And they just come back with a whole new perspective. So, I mean, we take survivors, but we not only take survivors, kind of how we pay for the foundation is that we also take fundraisers. And that's kind of the really neat part, is that friends and family and kind of go along on these adventures, and each person raises a minimum of a couple $1,000s to come on these adventures with us and our survivors. And that's how we pay for the survivors to have their training and their flights and their equipment. And it's really neat because, it's its own little ecosystem on these adventures where we call the fundraisers our gods and goddesses. And our gods and goddesses actually raise the money for the survivors to come on the trip with us. And then they all go do the adventure together. So it's, we take about 40 people per adventure, and we have about 6 or 7 adventures a year. And, and that's how it's all done. And it's neat because it's a little bit different than other, nonprofits that you raise money for, where you don't ever, or in some cases don't really know where your fundraising dollars have gone or how it's really benefited somebody. And in this case, you're actually hiking or paddling or kayaking right alongside the survivors that you've raised the money for. And you get to watch their lives, transform, and mostly their hearts and minds transform from someone who, was challenged and sort of needed help to being the person who's maybe even helping other people get to the finish line. It's their big comeback party. And, it's kind of neat because a lot of the fundraisers come and think that they're going to be helping the survivors. And the survivors are so strong and so amazing after training so hard that it's really neat because a lot of times the survivors help the fundraisers. So, we create a great team out there.
I bet,
Yeah.
it's like who's helping who in that case. And it'd be really easy to see that because, these women and the people that are participating in this just look dynamic. I mean, I've been looking at the website.
Yeah.
You get people from all over the country that go and apply to be a part of this, right?
Oh yeah, in some cases all over the world. We've had people from England, Australia, Canada, a couple other places in Europe, Ecuador. A lot of people come from the audiences, to whom I present my team building keynote. But others just hear about it from friends or family, or their friends and family of the survivors that we're taking with us. Or they hear about it from the past fundraisers who say this is a really cool cause and these are really great people who are facilitating this. And everybody also gets, when they come as fundraisers, they get a 16-week training plan. And they have a coach that they're accountable to, and they turn in GPS tracks. And it's really neat because at first we kind of started mostly coaching the survivors, but then we said, why aren't we coaching the fundraisers? So everybody's on the same coaching plan for the 4 months ahead of time. And, there are a lot of friends on Facebook and people that go train together. And so the community is already kind of created before the adventure even starts. And then when we go on these adventures, they're not, they're journeys. They're not, a lot of people don't want to put on a number and go race against somebody. It's just not their thing. But, on our adventures, we build a team. That's my whole thing. That's what I talk about from stage is, how do we build this world-class team where one leaves their ego at the start line? And, it's all about helping somebody else get to the finish line. And we're actually faster because of it. Because the faster people, they go to the back and they help somebody else. And the goal is to all cross the finish line as well as we can as a team, all 40 of us. And it's a really neat thing because we kind of create this great magic where there's no competitors, no egos. It's like, okay, who can I help? And, it's a lot different than things are a lot of cases in the real world. And, people go home and they say, man, I wish my real world were like this. And I would say, well, it can be, it starts with you.
Well, exactly. And, and I'm not surprised that you put that team building concept into, the fundraising aspect with Project Athena, because like you were saying, you just touched on it a little bit, but I'd like for you to broaden that discussion. You're also this keynote speaker. I mean, you're a badass. I mean, so to have somebody like you that's able to say, hey, these are ways to be able to build a team with no competition. I mean, I think people are stopping and listening to what you have to say because, I mean, you're very accomplished on everything that you've done here.
I mean, okay. My background is adventure racing and multi-sport stuff like Ironman where you're definitely a soloist. Mm-hmm. But, then I segued into adventure racing, which, a lot of people aren't super familiar with because it was a kind of a obscure sport, but, a lot of people called it the toughest race on earth because it was, these races are all over the world. They're in the most remote places you can find on earth. And you have 4 or 5 people per team. And in the rules, you have to have at least one man and one woman. So, they ensure that there's gender diversity on each team. And you have to stay together the entire time. And basically, like the race director will say, okay, meet me on this high plain in Tibet on this date. And they hand each team a set of maps and road rules. And everybody takes the maps and pores over them all night long because they tell you which 20 or 30 checkpoints you need to kind of arrive at and check in at. And these races go on, the next morning they say, ready, set, go. And, they're 600 to 1,000 miles long. And it's all non-motorized transportation. So it's kayaking, mountain biking, whitewater rafting, mountaineering, kind of whatever it takes to get from point A to point B. And the clock never stops. So if you sleep and when you sleep is all part of your team strategy. So you're really getting about an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours of sleep every 24 hours if you're trying to win. And, also within the rules is the fact that you have to stay together the entire time. It's not like a relay race where one person goes and the next person goes. All 4 or 5 people have to stay together the entire time within 50 yards of one another. So it really brings up an interesting dynamic, right? So it's not just about the physical and how decent of an athlete you are and how much experience you have. You also have to get all of these people with you across the finish line because if one person quits, your team is disqualified. So, so the real part of the game is not just, bringing great athletes, but also, can those people continue to inspire other semi-exhausted people across, through an endless series of checkpoints in pursuit of an impossible goal, working against extreme time pressures and constantly changing conditions, and with the goal of crossing the finish line first. And, that's what a lot of people are doing in the corporate world. Like, how do I continue to inspire people to really challenging finish lines where we all, have to cross this finish line together? And so after, kind of a bunch of years of doing adventure races and doing pretty well at them, I was very, very lucky to be on one of the best teams in the world for a number of years. And Fast Company magazine actually got a hold of us and said, hey, we're doing an article called Extreme Teamwork, where we're looking at some of the world's most consistently high-performing extreme teams and discovering what can be applied to business, based on your teamwork. So it was our team and a team from, Industrial Light and Magic and NASA and, kind of teams that work on extreme deadlines. And it was a really fun article. And they asked one of our team members to come speak at an event, it's like a reader event that they had, and I drew the short straw. So I kind of rolled down.
Oh, that is great.
So I was like, there I was.
You probably weren't thinking so at the time, because it's a transition when you're speaking to a group, but you do it so eloquently. You've got that down.
Well, I have a really neat presentation, I have to say, without patting myself on the back, but the presentation is really neat because I use a lot of examples and videos from adventure racing, where these teams are succeeding against all odds in crazy situations. And, it's kind of fun because you kind of go from story to concept to video. And, it's just a really authentic and unique way to look at teamwork and team building and leadership and how you build those world-class teams that are genuinely not just out there with each other, but for each other. And, kind of what we discovered is that when you really had a great team, where everybody was there for each other, it wasn't just like, I love you and you love me and purple dinosaurs. This ended up being killer strategy. Like the teams that were great together were also faster. And that's how the whole keynote evolved is, people talk about teamwork in business, but let me explain to you why it's actually better for your company, not only just the personnel and how great they feel about each other, but it's better for results and outcomes. And to actually be the kind of person that is a team builder inside in your soul. When you kind of are that person and you have a whole company full of those type of people that believe that same thing, There's no finish line that's too far away and no race you can't win. And adventure racing taught us that. So there I suddenly was talking at this Fast Company magazine conference, and I was lucky enough to have a zone vice president from Starbucks in the audience that day. Like, I think it was like my second presentation in my life. And he, all of a sudden I was talking to all these Starbucks store managers, across the country. And,
that's fabulous.
It started by, I accidentally became a speaker. I didn't mean to. Trust me.
Well, and I know one of the topics you talk about is human synergy and the magic that creates. And you just have dialed that in. You know what it takes, and the thing is I always appreciate when, we've got these great athletes such as yourself that are able to take the principles that make you great at what it is that you do. And those things apply across the board. And so, what else?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love like the human synergy part, I'd love if you talk about that for a little bit for our listeners.
Okay. Well, I talk about upgrading teamwork to human synergy, which is kind of, the next level. I envision teamwork like you've seen Successories posters where, it's like, teamwork walking side by side towards a common goal. But when you talk about synergy, it's not just about the individuals moving as quickly as they can as individuals. Synergy is where we're carrying each other. We're taking backpacks from each other. We're feeding each other. Like we're actually in that place where we're better together than any set of individuals could ever be alone, because we're capitalizing on each other's strengths and literally throwing a tow line to each other when times are tough. And that's how we discovered was the best way to win races. We called it suffering equally. And one of my teammates came up with that one day. He's like, "Oh, you got to suffer equally." And I was like, "Oh my God, he's right." But when you leave the start line, like if it's a running leg, who are your fastest runners? Let's give them a little bit more weight, so that all of our heart rates are even and we're moving at the same speed. And when someone's struggling, we don't just slow down to wait for them. We throw them a tow line. We attach them to a stronger person, and that stronger person pulls them along for a little while. And this wasn't the bastion of the slower teams. This was how teams won. And this is what I try to explain to people. It's not a weakness when you grab a tow line from somebody. It's how you win. It's how you go faster. And that's what I talk about, with the human synergy piece. So I actually have an acronym, and it spells out teamwork. And this is sort of the framework I use for my keynote. And it's, the T is in teamwork is total commitment. And this is basically the recipe for building and leading world-class teams. So the T is total commitment. The E is empathy and awareness, kind of that human connection to one another, because it's not about titles, it's about ties. It's about who you are. We work for people, not for companies. The A is adversity management. How do you inspire people through times of great challenge and change? Not to just survive those times, but to use them as a springboard. Say, what can we do with this that's going to make us even better? Mutual respect is the M, and then the W is we thinking versus me thinking. And that's where I talk a lot about that, that suffering equally and seeking synergy everywhere, and realizing that the way to the finish line is building a great team around you. Even if you have an individual goal, if you think of an Olympian, they don't get there by just being great at their sport. They end up having mentors and coaches and family and friends and other people that are helping them, through their day, their week, their school, they just surround themselves with great people that can help them get where they're going. And that's what we have to do as, even when we have an individual goal. And then, ownership is the O, ownership of the project, creating buy-in, and inspiring people to embrace the goals of your organization. And then the R is relinquishment of ego. We always say you got to leave your ego at the start line because it's the heaviest thing in your pack. And a lot of that is, asking for help and accepting help and realizing that it's a gift to the team. And then, the K is kinetic leadership, kind of meaning changing leaders as well as changing leadership styles. And we talk a little bit about situational leadership there and management versus leadership, and realizing that, if you're the manager, you're always the facilitator of your team's success, but you don't always have to be the leader. And I think a lot of people get that confused. One of your most important jobs is to create other leaders. So we kind of go through that acronym, and with each of them I have, one or two or three stories that go along with it. And then they see a video, from adventure racing, from some of the big races. And it's not always my team. In fact, it's my team in only a couple of the cases, but it's these great teams like the Japanese team in the Eco Challenge, which is kind of was the biggest race back in the day. They had a woman rip her Achilles tendon, and they carried her up and over the highest mountain before the finish line.
Oh, my goodness.
Every single
wow.
team member took a turn carrying her. And it's so inspiring just to watch them do this, like there were no egos. It was like, we just have this mission, and it wasn't fun for her either. She was,
I'm sure.
They're falling over rocks and falling down. I mean, just really inspiring, cool stuff. Or another team that, was coming to win the race. They were the top French team, and they were coming to win. And on their way walking to the start line, one of their teammates broke his ankle. And they had a really tough decision to make. We're in the middle of the jungle in Borneo starting this race. It was my first race ever. I was watching all this happen. And they set the guy, aside that broke his ankle, and they said, well, what are we going to do? And one of their teammates was like, well, let's just find out, see if there's anybody in this little village in the middle of the rainforest that wants to come race with us. And I started knocking on the huts in the rainforest. And, one of the doors opens, and they quickly assess that this guy will fit the available Lycra outfit that we have. And so they literally took this guy out of the jungle and over the course of the race taught him to race. But conversely, he taught them the lay of the land. He knew the jungle, he knew the way to some of the first few checkpoints, and he knew how to best get through the land and how to navigate to where they wanted to go. And so it was a really neat combination of, I talk about luck being opportunity meeting preparation, but, they both found luck in each other, where they had these completely divergent backgrounds and experiences. But then they had the opportunity of finding a local villager or a team that knew was the best of the best in adventure racing, and they found that in each other. And believe it or not, as 63 teams, they were second place with a guy that just opened the door in the middle of the rainforest, and they took second place. I mean, there's so many lessons that come from these things, right? About, but it's all very authentic and inspiring, and that's what's so much fun is people walk away going, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be on a team like that. I want to inspire my teammates like that. And, when I hear that, I just walk away going, okay, my work here is done. I'm happy.
Well, you are obviously a phenomenal keynote speaker because, I'm completely just, dialed into the stories that you're telling here. And they're stories that, you just want to grasp and be a part of. And I could see why people go, gosh, after hearing you talk about, these experiences, going, gosh, I want to redefine what team building is all about for my team.
Yeah. And leadership and team building and how we do it. And, I think it's fun because a lot of people haven't looked at it from this angle before, haven't seen it from this perspective before. About how, it's not just the individuals being individuals and trying harder, It's something completely unique, but it's the way to win.
Well, it's great advice. I was a top sales professional for many years and heard many speakers come in and talk and, gosh, we could have used you, The information you have, I think not only is it priceless, it really makes sense. The way to build teams and the way people want to be in teams isn't really so much about the competition, even in very competitive environments. It's more about how can we help one another. And I think people feel more fulfilled when they're able to be in that kind of an environment.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I think doesn't happen is when people are given an individual goal, they don't realize that the way to get even to that individual goal is to say, who can I bring on my team? How can I create a win-win here? And, I was in sales for a long time too. After college, I carried the bag for a big pharmaceutical company, and I was that person that, before I was in adventure racing and saw the magic of teamwork, I was a total individualist, and I didn't consult with anybody. I didn't talk to anybody else. I just did my thing in my territory. And I did well. I did okay, but I was good. I wasn't great. And what I discovered later is that one of the greats, who happened to be a guy out of Utah, he always would talk to everybody and send out emails and messages about what worked for him that week, or how he broke into a different hospital system with our products, or something that a doctor or surgeon told him. And I couldn't imagine why he kept doing that and why he was still number one, because he was sharing all his best stuff. Looking back, I was like, the man was brilliant. But at the time, it just didn't cross my consciousness that, in sharing all these things, he would get all these answers back. And people, because I asked him at the next sales meeting, I asked him why he did it. And he said, what do you think happens when I send this out? He's like, I'll get 20 or 30 back. And it's this informal group of people that mentor one another, in this unselfish way, that we've all become best friends because we're on the incentive trip every year. Like we now, of course, we go on the vacations together every year because we're all on the top of the sales force, because we're learning from each other, and we're taking the best tips from each other. And it's now become this thing where they became the top 10 or top 15 because they shared, not despite of the fact that they shared with each other. And, that's what I try to get across, is it's not even about just having a team goal. It's the way forward, even if you have an individual goal, is to, not reach up, but reach out.
Well, and, that kind of brings me to my next question here for you. Well, it's, kind of a question. I know you wrote this New York Times bestseller, How Winning Works. It's interesting. The principles in your book, I know it's 8 essential leadership lessons, really pertain to any business, and people can pick that up and just, immediately start implementing these lessons in their team, in their business, within their group, and just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, it works for families too. It's really just who you are as a team builder, and it's in essence the 8 essential elements of human synergy that I just go over one by one, in the book, and how you can apply it, and some inspiration, for applying it from adventure racing and firefighting. And it's funny. You never know what people are going to get out of the content. Of course, I've had everything from, this is the kind of leader I always wanted to be in business, but wasn't sure it was possible. And now I'm sure I'm on the right track, to, I had a guy come up to me after an event, and he said, I have to hug you. And he pulled away, and he had tears in his eyes. And I'm just, I'm in listening mode at that point, right? I'm just kind of looking at him, waiting, and he said, I have to tell you that I just realized what I'm doing wrong in my marriage.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, this content, it could possibly have saved this guy's marriage. And, so, it's about being a team. It's about how do you come to the table as a team builder? And, it not only does it make you feel better, but it makes you better, stronger, and faster. And, so everyone out there who's operating as an individual or thinks that team building is just a nicey nice thing, should really pick up the book and see that it's nice, but it's also great strategy for getting a lot of the things that you want in your life. So yeah, we'd love for anybody to come play with us, if you want.
Yeah, it sounds like fun, and I know you have opportunities where people can fundraise and donate at projectathena.org, or they can go ahead and participate in that. If they want to learn more about your team building and keynote speaking, that's at robynbenincasa.com. Do I have that right?
Yeah, ROBYN BENINCASA. It's Robyn Benincasa, like been in the house.
Well, they'll remember that for sure. Besides the fact that your information and the team building perspective that you bring is just amazing. So that definitely stick in people's minds. Thank you so much, Robyn, for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. It's been a pleasure and a joy, and I hope we see you in the canyon. For real. I'm not even kidding.
I'm looking at the Rim to Rim and can't wait to be a part of your group doing that. For our listeners, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.